We are here set for our final today.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready, Your Honor.
Stacy Grant on behalf of the father, Mr. Kopesky, and he is not present, Judge, and I have not had contact or located him.
Your Honor, I'm Tate Eldridge. I represent the mother.
Todd Henderson on behalf of alleged father Eugene Upton. I haven't had any contact with him.
Stacey Zavala on behalf of Chelsea.
And I'm sorry, I said Eugene Upton. I had Upton in my mind. Eugene Gregory.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Trout, how many witnesses we have today?
I would have, believe, two, Your Honor, and I believe, if I'm not speaking out of term, as far as mother on this case, back in October, we reached a mediated settlement agreement on this one. As far as dealing with the mother, she was agreeing to the department being named PMC and the mother named a possessory. The mother to have visitation 1 hour a week and have alternative times of possession as agreed upon by the parties. I believe that was pretty much a pretty simple MSA on this one, Your Honor.
Did you say department would be PMC?
Department would be named PMC and mother possessory. And that was filed on October 22nd, October 27th of 2022.
And she signed that MSA?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Your Honor, that's our agreement, and she has some pretty severe mental health problems, and she can't take care of Chelsea, but she just didn't want to be terminated. She wants to be involved as much as she can, but that is our agreement.
No child support
No, ma'am.
or medical?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so Mr. Eldridge, so noted is with respect to your client. Okay.
And Your Honor, there's been no contact on the two fathers that were named. And so we would take some testimony on them to just go ahead and terminate on grounds of failure to register on these. So.
Okay. All right, then who are we going to call first?
We'd call Haley Jordan. Thank you, ma'am. And how are you employed?
I'm an investigator with the Department of Family and Protective Services.
And how did the department become involved in the case with the child?
We originally became involved because we received a report that Chelsea was in a sexual relationship with an older woman.
And during your investigation, let me back up. Were you assigned originally to this case?
Yes.
Okay. And during your investigation, were you able to meet with the mother and the child?
I was.
Okay. Did the mother make comments to you about not being able to care for the child?
She did.
And that she does care about a child and wants the best for her, she's just not able to do it?
Yes, sir.
And did this case end up being a refusal of parental responsibilities?
It did.
Okay. During your investigation, did you ever speak to either one of the alleged fathers in the case?
No, sir, I did not.
Did mother ever give you the names of these two fathers?
I believe, yes, she stated the first name that, hold on, I'm sorry. Yes, she did. She named one father, but said that he had never had anything to do with her. And I believe the last name was, hold on, I'll tell you which one she actually, Kopesky.
Edward Kopesky?
Yes.
Okay. And, but you didn't have any contact information or contact with that person?
No, sir.
And that was throughout your whole time of having the investigation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the child was, department was granted temporary managing conservatorship.
Yes, we were.
And that was due to the mother, no father being involved and the mother refusing responsibility at that time? Yes, sir. And you believe that that was in the best interest of the child for the department to have temporary managing conservatorship?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I'd pass the witness, Your Honor.
Just very briefly, Ms. Jordan, you don't ever recall Chelsea or Ms. Upton saying the name Eugene Gregory, do you? In regards
I don't.
Okay. No further questions.
You can call your next witness.
We'd call Courtney Brown. And how long have you been in that job?
I've been with St. Francis since the transition last March.
Okay. And on this case, though, you were not the original worker.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, the name, have you ever had any contact with the fathers or alleged fathers, Eugene Gregory or Edward Kopinski?
No, sir. So when I got the case, Edward was presumed to be the alleged father, and the previous worker had sent letters and made phone calls. All of those letters were returned, and I followed up with those phone numbers as well and had no luck reaching anybody by that name.
Okay. And Eugene Gregory, have you ever had any contact with him or any information to contact?
No, sir.
And how is the child doing at this time?
Chelsea's doing well. She's had a few rough patches in her previous placements, but she is currently at House of Hope and she is doing well there.
Okay. How long has she been there?
She was placed there in early May.
Okay. Today, is the department asking for temporary managing conservatorship, or excuse me, for permanent managing conservatorship to the department based upon the mediated settlement agreement signed by the mother?
Yes, sir.
And are we asking for termination of the parental rights of Eugene Gregory and Edward Kopinski as to the child, Chelsea?
Yes, sir.
And are you aware of a paternity registry search that was run?
Yes, sir.
And did that return any names?
Did not.
And Judge, I'd ask the court to take judicial notice of the certificate of paternity registry search that was run and filed with the court on December 6, 2022, as to the child chain returning no names having been registered.
No
No.
objection.
No objection.
All right, I'll take judicial notice of the paternity registry search, which was conducted, seeing if anyone had registered as father, and that it reflects that no one has so registered, and it has been filed with the court.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Brown, back up on that last question. I got ahead of myself a second. Department's asking for termination of the both alleged fathers due to failure to register for paternity registry and having no contact throughout this case. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the Department of St. Francis inability to locate and find either one of the fathers.
Yes, sir.
And do you believe that following the mediated settlement agreement as to the mother and the child and the termination of both parental rights of the alleged fathers is in the best interest of the child?
I do.
I'd pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Brown, I know you were not the original caseworker, but do you have knowledge of a sister of Edward Kopinski being reached in this case?
I'm not a sister. I believe I was told it was the daughter.
Okay. The relative that was reached, whether it be sister or daughter, could provide no forwarding information for Mr. Kopinski. Is that true?
That's correct.
And would you agree with me that that lead was run to the ground with no success?
Yes, ma'am.
And his last known location to his family was somewhere in Oklahoma. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you do diligent searches in Oklahoma for Mr. Kopinski?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you perform any social media searches or any other type of searches besides the paternity registry in an effort to locate him?
Yes, ma'am.
And those were all unsuccessful, correct?
They were.
And you have exhausted all leads in this case to locate Mr. Kopinski at this time, correct?
That's correct.
Pass the witness, Judge.
Ms. Brown, did the child ever have any information to offer regarding the identity of the father or having had any contact with either of these gentlemen?
She has told me the name Edward, but that's pretty much the gist of it. She's never mentioned that Eugene could be her father. I think it was pretty clear that Edward was the alleged father, and that is what she believed. But they've never had a relationship, and she's never expressed an interest in pursuing that.
Okay, but she didn't indicate that she really had a relationship either.
Right. Yes.
Okay, and I'll ask, of course, Mrs. Zavala, the same thing if she has any other information about that. But okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Henderson.
Ms. Brown, was the name Eugene Gregory first mentioned to you or to the previous caseworker?
The previous caseworker.
Okay. And all the efforts made to locate him were done by the previous caseworker as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Ms. Grant asked you several questions about searches related to her client. Were those same types of searches done for Mr. Gregory as well?
They were.
And was there any sort of contact made with either him or any family member?
No, sir.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
Anybody have any further questions then of Ms. Brown?
Not of Ms. Brown, Your Honor. I would like to notify the court, and it was filed. As to Mr. Kopinski, we did try to get him served in Oklahoma. That was issued on 5/5/23. We got a unserved return on that on 6/5/23 out of Muskogee, Oklahoma.
And so we did publication on both of these gentlemen. Is that right?
I don't know that we did publication due to him being alleged, Your Honor.
We're just relying on paternity registry.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Mr. Trout, any further witnesses?
No further witnesses, Your Honor.
All right, then does the department rest?
Department of Rest, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Eldridge, anything to present today?
I have nothing, Your Honor. We rest. The mother rests.
Okay, and Ms. Grant.
No witnesses, Your Honor. I've had, again, no contact with Mr. Kopesky, but I have been served with all the relevant documents in this case by the department and their attorney, Mr. Trout, and agree that all efforts were exhausted to locate him and that he did not register.
Okay, and Mr. Henderson?
I have no witnesses, Judge. I've had no luck contacting Mr. Gregory or even finding a way to contact Mr. Gregory.
All right, and Ms. Zavala, a recommendation today?
Yes, Your Honor. It is my recommendation that the department be named permanent managing conservator of Chelsea. I've had regular contact with Chelsea throughout this case. I will note that my very last two Zooms, she was a no-show for. We had one scheduled, she no-showed, we reset it, she no-showed. However, all the way back when we were doing this mediated settlement agreement, we've been talking on how this case, we anticipate this case will go. I'll back up what Courtney said about her discussions with Dad. She really has had no relationship with a father. And I really like the placement that she's at. Had been there before and had done very well. She's now placed back there, and I was able to review CASA's notes. I do know that they've been able to speak with her recently. So I do believe that not only is this in her best interest, but that this is what she is desiring herself.
All right, great. And CASA.
I did speak with Chelsea last week. We are in agreement with the department giving the permanent permanent managing conservator and mom getting possessory. Whenever I spoke with Chelsea last week, she did say that she didn't want anything to do with her dad, that she's never talked to him and never had a relationship with him. And that she does seem to be doing really well at this placement now. She did have some issues before, but placement said that she's doing a lot better now.
Okay, great. All right, everybody else rest, close.
Rest closed, Your Honor.
Rest close.
I do find by clear and convincing evidence, it is in the best interest of the child to terminate the parental rights between the child and the two alleged fathers, Edward Kopesky and Eugene Gregory, both based on their failure to register with the paternity registry. I find that it is in the best interest of the child, the Department of Family and Protective Services as the permanent managing conservator of the child, and to name the mother, Angela Upton, as the possessory conservator of the child. Visitation will be as worked out through the department and with the mom, particularly in light of the fact that the child is placed out of area. I will not order any child support or medical support for mom to pay at this time, so that mother can continue pursuing services through TPC and whatever else the department has to offer her. And we will have our first, well, I'll dismiss all other court-appointed attorneys from the case at this time. Obviously, after any de novo or appellate timeframe has expired, with the exception that Ms. Zavala, who will remain as the child's attorney ad litem and guardian ad litem. And Casa, do you all wish to remain in the case, or do you feel like Chelsea's good, or do y'all want to stay in for a while?
We'll see on it for a while.
Okay, all right. So I will leave CASA in the case. Council, obviously, as always, do be aware of course, your de novo timeframe begins to run today since I've rendered an open court. And if you're instructed to file a notice of appeal by your client, please wait until we've got a signed order and adopted by the referring court. All right, I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. Set for a final.
Thank you, Judge.
We are continuing through the Zoom program. We are live streaming, and Ms. Goodman has joined us from Florida to make our record today. And we are conducting this under a finding of good cause and agreement and consent of the parties. So we'll go ahead and take everybody's announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, and Darius Ray will be my privacy specialist today.
Natalie Archer for the mother as attorney ad litem for Shauna Wilde.
Ken Araujo as guardian ad litem for the mother, Shauna Wilde, present ready.
Mr. Hammonds, he may be on the phone. I'll just state on the record, Mr. Hammonds is present on behalf of Ronald Wilde. I think he's trying to reach Mr. Wilde. Mr. Wilde was logged in earlier in my waiting room. I attempted to bring him in and he never really did join in. So I know Mr. Hammonds has been trying to reach him to see if he could get logged back in, but he was logged in. Okay, Ms. Zavala.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Tempe.
Okay, and mom I heard somebody, looks like mom dropped out. So we'll let her log back in. We were set for a final. We've had a bench conference and I know that a motion to extend has been made, agreed to by all the parties. And council have sort of outlined that. And from reading the report, I sort of had a feeling that was probably coming and is appropriate. So I'm going to make a finding of extraordinary circumstances exist to extend the case, and I will extend it. Have we calculated a new dismissal date?
Well, in your honor, we're in an extension right now.
I'm sorry.
It was just set for an early final, so we're just wanting to change to a review hearing and move the final out. I'm sorry.
That's right. You've said that. I'm the one that came up with that creative thought. No, you're exactly right. We set an early final, so yes, we've got time. So we're going to just vacate the final setting for today, and we have until October 6th. That's our dismissal date.
Yes, ma'am. And we can set it earlier than that if the court wants to, so we're not running all the way up against that deadline. But we just need a little more time to figure out some things.
While we get started, I'll let Miss Katie look for a little bit earlier date. Maybe you're thinking like what, August maybe, or September?
Yeah, probably August, first part of September.
Okay. Right. Okay, I'll have her look for a date while we try to get an update. So, Mr. Ray, what do we have new since the court report was filed? And just for the record, Ms. Wilde did drop out again. So.
Since the court report was filed, there's not really anything new. The only thing I'm not sure if I was able to get it on there in time was the child temperance. Her foster parents were able to get her into an ABA school for autism. And so she has started that school.
Okay. So we have an actual diagnosis?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. She was diagnosed, I believe, in February.
Okay. All right. Okay, and are parents still engaged in services?
Shauna pretty much completed all her services. The biggest thing that I continue to express to her is maintaining gainful employment and housing. Those have been major concerns. And then she has not given a clean hair follicle since coming into the whole process of the foster care system. There has not been a single clean hair follicle. Ronald have pretty much completed all services except BIP. He actually got discharged from BIP from due to his attendance. He wasn't making the classes like he should, and so they disqualified him. So if he starts that over, if he goes to it again, he have to start it all the way over. He cannot pick that up from where he left off. And he also, I don't believe that he has he's unemployed right now as well.
So is reunification still a goal?
Truthfully, Judge, I don't think we're going to look at reunification. I know we asked for the extension, but there's a lot of circumstances that just doesn't look like reunification would be a good idea for this child. Both of the parents are potentially pending criminal charges that are kind of looking like it's going to result in jail time for both parents. The father's health is very, very, very questionable. And then as far as the mother, just her not being able to maintain a job and housing, that right there in itself is questionable. And so depending on the outcomes that proceed as we do go into the extension, the department will probably look at trying to get the child adopted, and there is a family that is willing to adopt.
I dare gonna ask though, having said that, y'all haven't actually staffed on all that, correct?
No, sir.
That's just what you're looking at. That has not been staffed with all your supervisors yet.
Not at all. That
Okay.
is just trying to answer the judge truthfully.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just want to make sure that has not been officially determined yet, Your Honor. That's kind of where things look like and what we're not sure about, but there'll be a staffing on all of that.
Okay. Would you all like an order to mediation in the case? Since we're gonna vacate and reset? Ms. Archer, Mr. Hammonds, you tell me, you think there's any benefit in that?
Possibly. I think our biggest holdup, because my client's done all the services, and she's trying to get a job. She's been with Indeed trying to do that. And she's going to the pavilion for behavioral health class. So I feel like she's trying really hard. She really wants her daughter back. The holdup for us is the criminal case that she is looking at a few months of state jail, but it would only be a few months. So I'm not sure if mediation would help or not. I haven't spoken to her about that.
Okay.
Judge, from my position, I don't know that mediation would help Ronald's situation one way or the other. I mean, Idarius, I think you would agree with me. He's been given some health prognosis issues that have just arisen in the last 4 to 6 weeks that, could affect his ability to take care of a young child.
I would agree.
All right. And Judge, I don't think mediation is going to resolve anything one way or the other when it comes to that. But I mean, I'll encourage him to, keep cooperating, keep doing what he's been doing with the department. But yes, he has, and we discussed this. I mean, he has a hard decision to make as far as what's in the best interest for Tempe going forward.
Okay. All right. Well, if anybody gets the sense that, it would help, you can let us know.
Okay. And I think if you'll give us 8 to 10 weeks here, I think we can at least answer a few of these questions a little bit better.
Okay. So we have got, a setting, it looks like, August 22nd at 9:00. Everybody thought they could do that.
I think Ms. Archer responded she may have a conflict on that. Is that correct, Natalie?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be in Carson County at 9, but I can see what I can do.
It might not be right at 9, Ms. Archer. That's just
Okay.
a 9 o'clock docket. So
That would help me.
probably shift it later in the morning.
That'd be great.
It probably would be anyway, quite frankly. It'd probably be towards the end of our docket.
Okay. Also, is there any chance that if my client does a hair follicle and it shows decreased levels, would the court or Idarius consider any kind of extra visit?
With me answering that, I believe, speaking on behalf of the department, we would like to see no levels, we would like for it to be clean. We don't feel that there should be any reason that her hair is still dirty, given that it's been about 15 months.
Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Archer, I have to say I would agree with that. I mean, we've had a long time to, get there.
Okay.
So. Then Ms. Zavala, anything today?
Your Honor, Tempe's doing really great in placement. The new program, I think, is going to be really good. A lot of hands-on work with her, and for this placement to be able to A, get her in, and B, get an early diagnosis for her, I think is going to make a huge difference in her life. So I've got no concerns about her in her placement. You've already addressed this, but I do worry about upping visitation in a time when we've seen no clean hair follicle. So I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I think that's already been addressed. I have some concerns about, father shaving body hair when asked to hair follicle. So I would like almost a standing order for a hair follicle whenever it's long enough to get it. I don't know if that's even a possibility, but I would request that, additional drug screens from both parents.
When was the last hair test that mom gave, Mr. Ray?
It was in May.
Okay, so fairly recent. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And then the father, I spoke to him in which we requested him to grow his hair out. Otherwise, it would count as a positive. And so he said that he's growing his hair out as of right now. I'm not necessarily sure. He went, I can't remember if it was 2 weeks ago, he went and it still wasn't long enough. So he's growing his hair.
Okay.
And I think that last hair follicle, Your Honor, for mom was on May 19th.
Okay.
It was.
Well, I'm going to let the department continue to request random drug testing. I don't know that I need to order anything today. I think they certainly can request that and when they think it's time to do it. So I won't make a specific unless you need UAs today, but
I wouldn't be opposed to requesting a UA be done today.
it's getting kind of late already. So I'll order the UAs for both parents, but I'll give them until 4 o'clock tomorrow. And then I'm not going to, mom has recently hair tested. So, I'll let Mr. Ray decide when he wants to, do that again. And same, with Mr. Wilde when he's got enough hair to test. So. All right. Anybody have anything further? I guess, Mr. Trout, are we going to enter a review hearing order today?
Yes, ma'am. I was taking the notes on to get that. We'll get a order done.
Okay. Anybody have anything else on a review today? Ms. Naranjo, I haven't called on you and you've been very quiet.
I have nothing to add, Judge.
Okay.
No, Judge.
Okay, then I will continue the department as temporary managing conservator and continue child's placement. We're going to reset the final to August 22nd of 2023. It'll be on a 9 o'clock docket, and then
We're here today in
order
each
parents
case
to
before
UA
4 p.m. tomorrow.
on a motion hearing concerning placement of children. And we are conducting this through the Zoom program under a finding of good cause and by agreement and consent of the parties. We've got a number of healthcare professionals with us today, and I know it makes it easier for you all to be able to log in from your respective offices. And Ms. Goodman, who is a very long way from all of us, is taking our record today. Okay, we'll go ahead and take everyone's announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, present and ready.
Brooks Barfield for Lindsay Hill, present and ready. My client is present as well.
Jeff Hill on behalf of Keaton Hensley, the father of the Hensley children. He is here. We're ready.
P.D. Hammonds, attorney for Jonathan Archer, father of Juniper. I'm ready, Judge. Mr. Archer is presently in the Potter County Jail. I do not believe he's joining us. I see Lieutenant Frazier with Potter County, but I'm assuming he's just joining in for his own reasons.
He'll be one of my witnesses.
Okay. I didn't know if that was somebody at the jail, but all right, I'm ready to proceed.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of the girls.
Donna Rowland with CASA. With me, I have Christina Kearns, the advocate, and Shelby Statue, a volunteer survivor.
So, Mr. Trout.
Yes, ma'am. Your Honor, I may have to take my witnesses out of order real quick. Lieutenant Frazier has somewhere he needs to go, and if he is still with us, I would like to go ahead and ask him a few questions. And how are you employed?
I am the administrative lieutenant for the Potter County Jail.
Okay. And does the jail record phone calls from inmates?
Yes.
And how are those calls recorded for the county?
They're by contract with a vendor called GTL, which was recently bought out by Viapath.
Okay. And these calls, they are phone calls. They're also, I guess, face chats on iPads or some sort of tablet.
Correct. There are phone calls and tablet visits along with text messages that are recorded.
Okay. And can you describe the system in which those are recorded and done, how that is done?
For someone to do a visit from the outside, they have to set up an account with GTL Viapath. They then schedule a visit, and then they have to pay, or the inmate in custody has to pay for the visit. They schedule times. If it's phone, then of course they have to enter their PIN number and say their name. If it's a tablet, they have to enter a PIN number as well. And also, oftentimes there's a login photo that also gets reviewed.
Okay. And so these PIN numbers are associated with each individual person that has an account?
Correct.
Is that and just to clarify, the people on the outside, they also have their PIN numbers, so not inmates, but family or whoever's trying to call?
I do not know. I know they have to have some kind of password access, but I don't know how that side of it works, other than they have to set up an individual account. If they're going to do video visits, by written policy with GTL, they're supposed to supply some kind of ID as well as login photo before they're verified for visits.
Okay. On these phone calls and the tablet visits, are there any warnings about possible recordings that take place before the call starts?
Now, I know on the phone call, there is a stated one. Anytime you review any of the phone calls, it says so. The tablet system, I do not specifically know what is told to the outside, to the visitors, if there's anything that states that or not.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Trout, anything further from this witness?
Nothing from Lieutenant Frazier.
All right. Any objection if Mr. Frazier goes on about his day?
No objection.
Yes, ma'am. We would call Lindsay Hale, Lindsay R. I think she signed under Lindsay Hale. And Ms. Hale, we're here today on a placement hearing. Is that your understanding?
Yes, sir.
On whether we'll place where the 3 children should be placed.
Yes, sir.
And this hearing conversation kind of got started at the last hearing. You remember that?
Yes.
And during that hearing, were you asked whether you were still having contact with Jonathan Archer?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember what your answer was?
I said no.
And is that the truth?
Unfortunately not.
Okay. Is it true that you have actually had contact with Mr. Archer throughout this whole case up to multiple times a day?
There was a couple of months where I didn't, but for the most part, yes.
Okay. And you've been having those conversations even up till yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Have you had contact today?
His friend came and contacted him, but yeah, I guess.
What do you mean his friend came and contacted him? What do you mean by that?
Sat here and talked with him for a little bit.
Okay, so somebody might have called from your residence to him, or vice versa. He called the residence.
Yeah.
Okay. You were in the house?
Yeah.
Okay. When you sign into these calls, now there's been phone calls and there's also been tablet meetings. Is that correct?
Mainly phone calls.
Mainly phone calls. But quite a few on the tablet also, correct?
With his mom.
Okay. Now you sign in under his mom's account, correct?
I go and sit with his mom.
Okay, so his mom's always sitting there?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Sometimes she's in the living room or something, but.
Okay. So if we showed you a video of the two of y'all speaking, his mom would be in that room?
most of the time, like I said, sometimes she went to a living room or
We put the video up, you'd be able to identify yourself and Mr. Archer, is that correct? Okay. Do you remember kind of how the conversations typically go, what y'all's conversations are about?
kind of here nor there, daily stuff, or even to just, I don't know, just a little bit of everything. Recently it's been more like starting separating, but not quite, like the figuring that stuff out.
Okay. And by what you're meaning by that, are you talking about possibly filing for divorce, separating, parting ways? Discussing?
I started filing online for divorce and figuring that stuff out, and I've also contacted legal aid to figure that out. But like bank accounts, when we first got together, everything, I was added to his stuff, and car, stuff like that. Like, was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years and depended heavily on him, and working on trying to separate that.
So what you're saying is conversation about typical things that happen during a divorce, things you have to separate.
More recently, yes.
Okay. During y'all's phone calls, do you or Mr. Archer routinely refer to it'll be you and me against the world?
Usually he says it.
Okay. Does that show to you, does that show that there is a plan to actually separate? Or are y'all making these decisions in order to check boxes for this case?
More on his side, not, but like I've discussed, especially with his mom recently, is a few years ago we had an abusive bit, and I've discussed it with Mr. Barfield a while ago, of I'm starting to like notice more and more if I say something out of turn with him, like the anger with it, or like if I buy something for myself now, he gets angry, and I'm noticing the more and more the flags of kind of what I became normal with. And I hate that it's come to this point for me to realize how it was.
During one of your phone calls, have y'all discussed whether either in his criminal case or in the CPS case that it's a witch hunt and nobody really has anything and grasping at straws?
He said it, and I just tell him that I don't get told anything. That
on 6/13, there's a phone conversation. Do you remember discussing or a statement being made that remember, we both know the truth?
I'm sure he said that more than once, but I don't know the specific days, of course.
Okay. Now, during y'all's conversations, do y'all talk about your private lives?
A bit.
And agreements and rules that y'all have with each other while he is incarcerated?
He tries, but again, more often I upset him with like people I hang out with now, or that I'm hanging out with people and not just sitting home being a lonely spinster. Like,
and when you say hanging out with people, are these different men staying over at the house?
Not staying at, but like coming over. I have like his best friend will come and check. what me and Mr. Hensley used to classify as the girl's godfather. He's been checking on the girls and coming to make sure like I'm still eating and trying to take care of myself and stuff like that.
Do they stay the night at the house?
No.
So there's no phone conversation where Mr. Archer would say, I have a problem with him sleeping on my side of the bed.
He has said that, but it's more me trying to annoy him. Like he has no rhyme or reason to worry about any of that because that's none of his concern. Like I let him kind of do all that.
None of his concern. So other people staying over at the house would be none of his concern.
What I do has no concern.
Are y'all married?
Yeah.
So as a married couple, it would be his concern. Is that correct?
In normal circumstances, yes, but this is by far not normal.
Is there ever discussion or talk about what type of punishment it would be once he returns home for the other people staying at the house?
No.
Okay. So on 6/11, during a phone call, he did not say, remember, I'm the longest running owner of the Lindsay Handbook, and that you won't be able to say no.
He has said that.
So there are discussions about what will happen once he comes home.
On his side, yes.
And on 6/11, that there were that you were getting leeway for your personal lives due to the situation, but that there is still going to be punishments involved.
Again, he likes to try to be in control and thinks he has that bit.
But that is a conversation y'all have had on a couple of occasions.
At least that one recently, but I'm sure probably he's mentioned something.
Now, when these type of conversations come up, you had said earlier that when you were signed in under his mother's name, that she was in the room. Do y'all have these conversations in front of her?
Those are usually phone calls versus over the tablets, like.
Okay. And to clarify at this point, what the calls I'm referring to are all tablet calls. These are not the phone calls. These are all tablet calls.
Okay. He said a couple of things in front of his mom and she kind of makes her comment and then I just make my comments to her and we kind of ignore it. But like stuff to that extent, he doesn't say in front of her.
Do you end all phone calls with I love you and by giving a hand signal? On the tablets.
More of a depressed I love you or sarcastic, but yeah.
So yes, you do.
Yeah.
Do y'all also mention when he gets home, you just lay your head in his lap and he'll give you cuddles and make everything go away?
I'm going to object to the form of that question because it's a question he asked, do y'all? So I think the question is vague and ambiguous, Your Honor. I think it needs to be asked in a different manner.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor.
Saying what? Thank you, Daniel.
I apologize. Ms. Hale, does Jonathan say that he will place you in his lap and while he reads a book?
He usually says he's gonna, how does he put it? That I'm laying on his chest while he reads his book in there. Like a in the heart thing, or I don't know.
And then he's mentioned that that's kind of when he gets out, that's what he needs. And I'll mention that emotionally, I need to unravel emotionally.
Now, y'all are just have discussed filing for divorces. The two of you and Mr. Archer, are both just in discussions of filing for divorce. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And have you been helping out and working on trying to get them released and trying to raise bonds? And do you ever speak to his criminal defense attorney on his behalf? Do you ever call Mr. Warner's office?
No, I know he asks me to a bunch, and he asks me to call Hammonds, and I tell him to go, okay, well, and I'll leave it at that. I know he asks his mom too, and he tells me I need to talk to like my family and ask them about stuff. And I'm just like, I'm here nor there. Like, I'm not.
So
haven't.
Just so I have an understanding of this, your constant contact with Mr. Archer in jail. Your testimony today is that even though the conversations go to all these places we've mentioned, you are completely disassociated from it.
I'm working on getting there more and more. Like I said, being completely dependent on him for nearly 10 years I didn't realize exactly how dependent I was on him. And I thought I had friends before, but realizing what I'm gaining now, that I really didn't have other people besides him to depend on to, even just a bad day call. I have people now that, oh, I stubbed my toe, let me call you type calls. It's nice. But realizing how, I guess, pretty much sectioned off I was before with him. And like I said, he still gets upset to this time because of people. I'm just like, it doesn't. But I still catch myself on like the phone calls, and it's one of those, it's easier not to have him mad. And then it's like, oh, wait, I don't have to deal with it if he gets mad. It's not going to turn into something physical.
Yeah. Do y'all ever discuss services and what's going on with the CPS case?
No.
Never?
Mm-mm.
So on 6/12 last week, you didn't tell him that you had a appointment with Mr. Timmons?
I guess if you want to classify that as part of the CPS case, then yes, but.
Do you see Mr. Timmons during the CPS case?
I classify it more as with the kids and with CPS. Like, those are more, Timmons isn't just specifically for this case. He's also for personal bits.
Understand.
With my anxiety and everything.
And so during that conversation, did Mr. Archer say, be careful what you say to Mr. Timmons?
Yes.
And that he feels like they just feed you stuff so you will continue to be going?
I think he's negative about everything.
Okay. And during that, did you acknowledge that you were careful about what you said?
I'm not exactly sure what I said. I might have, but I'm not exactly sure.
Did y'all discuss as far as placement of the kids, since this is a placement hearing? Did y'all, the two of you, discuss the placements of the children?
He'll mention about Juniper,
okay.
But that's it.
Okay.
And I try to steer it away. Like, I know that's one of those things that not supposed to be talking, just be like, okay, and talk to your lawyer, or, or try to change the subject.
Who is Twig? Is that who y'all refer to, Juniper as?
It could be what I think that's what he uses, because when he tries to talk about her.
Okay, now did you ever say that they were trying to place Twig with, I believe it was, if I heard it correctly, Eastern?
I might have. What was that? Tuesday? That might have been Tuesday.
Yes, ma'am. So you do know that conversation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember being really, really upset.
And that you mentioned you were told to hang him so that y'all could get so that you could get the kids back. Okay. So again, y'all do discuss the CPS case during your calls.
I guess that bit, yeah.
During that same Tuesday conversation, was there a question asked or a conversation, not a question, a conversation of you going against them, he doing time for something he didn't do, and he gets what he wants? You remember that?
He's made lots of comments about the doing time for something he didn't do, but I'm not quite sure about the rest of those comments.
So you wouldn't know who he is that he's speaking of?
Not really.
What do you mean by not really?
I mean, it could be anyone. No, I don't. Easier answer, sorry.
Now, there was also on that same Tuesday call, and this goes back toward some of your personal lives that you were talking about. He came over and you went over the deep end. What do you mean by that?
I don't know about the he, but usually when I say like going over the deep end or something, like just super emotional, overwhelmed, everything going on, just I don't know a better way to explain it. Just pretty much just needing a moment, just completely break. And
if this was a conversation with talking about someone who was at your house that night and stayed over?
Again, I'm going to object. Question is being vague and ambiguous. Who is making these statements about someone coming over? I need clear. I'm going to object to the form of the question.
Did you mention that someone had stayed at the house and you had gone over the deep end?
I don't know about staying at the house because no one's, but maybe coming over, but I still don't exactly know exact conversation this is pertaining to, so.
And Mr. Archer's next statement was, since you promised me.
So that's probably more pertaining to having relations with other people.
And as far as asking for the children to come home today is what this hearing is about, is where the children would be placed. Do you think it is a good environment for the girls who, what this case is based on, to come home to be coming home to a home where different men are staying at the house or coming over randomly while your husband is in jail?
Well, there's only been one that's been to that point, but the rest are like their uncle and essentially their godfather, and that's really it. And they've known them since they were babies.
On 6/14, there was a conversation, and Mr. Archer stated, "I tossed and turned since someone," and excuse me, I'm just quoting, I tossed and turned since someone was being a whore last night. He stayed the night last night, didn't he?
I'm sure he probably made that comment.
Did you deny that somebody had stayed that night?
I like to push his buttons. He's always accusing me of cheating, and again, I don't have to worry about it becoming physical or having to like super defend myself or any of that. I can let it be whatever, and he just have to deal with it.
So what you're saying is that you don't normally deny or confirm just to get under the skin?
I know it sounds really bad, but I kind of like enjoying upsetting him currently with, like I said, I don't have to worry about it becoming physical. I can, a little bit of retribution of everything I've kind of started realizing I've gone through.
Okay. Due to that, and you're not having to worry about it getting physical, do you mean if he was out, it would be getting physical? Is that what you mean? Him being
Most
physical,
likely.
Mr. Archer being physical with you is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Having said that, and I understand y'all still married and you're working through some things, but if that is the case, then why is there constant contact? You know, why are you the one calling? Why is he calling you? Why are you always there when his phone calls? If you don't have to worry about him being physical or him being around due to being locked up, why do you continue the contact with him due to the nature of this case?
Like I said, I'm realizing more and more just how separated I was from everyone. Family was a huge thing for me before, and like we started not as much, but like we wouldn't spend as much time on like holidays or just random constant stop bys. Me and Mr. Hensley would, I think there was one year we did 13 Christmases in 2 days. Like, it's a huge thing. And I've realized just how much that got cut back over time and how much I was forced to depend on him for emotions and everything. And still that's a little bit of a trigger of, oh, something really bad, upsetting just happened. I need to call him. And then it's like, oh, wait, but I don't have to anymore. I can call other people and not have to worry or explain, oh, why'd you call them instead of me? Or, you know, I'm having to learn all this and work through what I didn't think necessarily was such a big, huge, hard issue, and realizing just how everything, I don't know what to say besides everything it was, but everything it was.
And when did you come to that realization?
I've slowly been working on it. The more like he gets upset, I bought a pocket knife for work and he's just like, well, that money could have gone on commissary. And I'm just like, but it's my money. Like, there are stuff I need and things for other things, like, and he'd get real upset. I'm just like, but he'd spend money on whatever for him. And I'm just like, okay, hey, look. And then it's like, oh, wait, this has always been going on. But now I can make decisions. It's him making all the decisions.
Okay. But you still had contact with him up until y'all made a call this morning.
We've been, like I said, I've been working through that. And I do believe the last appointment I had with Timmons, I upped my counseling with him, I think, to twice a month instead of once a month now. And to like start pinpointing this more.
During your phone call today, when you talked to him, were you asked to call him after this hearing is over with?
He at least later, I'm sure.
Yeah, yes or no? I mean, were you asked to call after this?
Yeah, it's call later, yes.
You mentioned a while ago that how much you came to realization of how much family and friends meant. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Are you still in contact with your family?
Everyone but my mom.
The department's asking for placement with a great aunt, and it's your great aunt. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you
My
have
Aunt Kim.
Do you have an issue with Kim?
No, no, that's why she was recommended.
Okay. Now, you originally recommended, is that correct? For a home study? I believe that name came from you.
It was her and another aunt and uncle, yes.
Okay. But now you don't wish to have placement with that aunt?
I don't mind it. It's just the separation of the kids.
Okay. And I understand that. You know, that's a tough part of these cases. But do you believe that there are some things, your realization you came to with family and friends and Mr. Archer, do you believe that at this point placement back with you would be good, or do you believe that you need to work on yourself before the girls are placed back?
I probably still need some work.
Okay.
Especially, again, like you said, with all these realizations and just realizing how under thumb I was with life.
So placement with great aunt at this time, do you believe that would be in Juniper's best interest?
I really like the placement they're currently at, but if they must be moved, then yes.
Then family would be good.
Yeah.
And you'd be okay with that?
Yeah. I've talked to her, of course, we've talked all the kids' life, of course, but when everything started, I sent her stuff about dietary for all of them. Of course, it was a rundown and stuff like that. So.
And understandably, not wanting this girls to split, but Mr. Hensley is the biological father of the two girls, correct?
Yes.
And do you have an issue with them being placed with him?
Just mainly the fact that I've constantly asked for help with them, and I've always been told that he works or that he can only have them the 4 days a month, and we've never had the summer visitations, but now he's volunteering. I have a bit of an issue there.
Okay. Do you think that could possibly be due to the nature of this case and some of the circumstances have changed?
I don't know, because again, I've had been asking because like Mr. Archer and Delilah would be fighting, and I'd be, hey, they need a break. They need, and I'd never get any help.
Due to the constant contact with Mr. Archer that we've been discussing, do you believe your girls?
Like I've explained to Erica several times, I believe them, especially more and more coming to terms with the under thumb that I was and realizing how much Delilah and him were fighting. And then she'd be just perfectly fine. It was like, okay, that's a little, I'm noticing more and more. And then the mom guilt is the biggest bit I'm having with it, is coming to terms that I failed.
But you didn't answer my question. My answer was, do you believe your girls, was my question. Yes or no?
Yes.
And do you believe that it was Mr. Archer, or do you believe it was somebody else?
I have concerns otherwise, and that one's not going to change, but my biggest thing is, and I know it's more of a once therapy and stuff gets started, one of those, I want I don't necessarily want to hear it from them, but all I've been told is through other people that they said this. And it's not the same as hearing it from your own child, I guess.
Is your
Like,
is your constant contact with Mr. Archer partially also due to you don't believe it was him?
like it's in the beginning, it was more.
But up until the conversations this morning, that has changed.
It's been changed for a little bit. I can't give you an exact time, but it's been a little bit.
But that didn't change your contact with him while he's sitting in jail.
Like I said, I've been trying to work on that.
But you just to clarify, and you did state a while ago that due to your realizations, you believe it'd be best for the girls to be placed not at home right now.
Currently, till I can get a little bit more counseling, figuring out all the abuse trauma stuff. Yeah.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, then, Mr. Trout, who's your next witness?
I think we will call, just to kind of go in order, we call Mr. Troy Timmons.
Okay, Mr. Timmons. Okay, Mr. Timmons, everybody has stipulated that you are an expert in your field, so as such, you may testify to your opinions, of course, just in your field of expertise.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Timmons, you're familiar with the case we're discussing?
Yes, sir.
And just for the record, you are familiar, you see mom for counseling?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how long have you been seeing Lindsay?
Since earlier this year, I believe, it's around 10 times I've seen her, since she reached out to me, I guess, after this CPS matter had taken off.
Okay. And she had mentioned earlier that you see her kind of both for the CPS a little bit, but that she, as you just mentioned, had reached out prior.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. She had established services with me before the CPS services were established, I believe.
Okay. And how is mom doing in her?
You know, she's I see a lot of effort in terms of she's juggling a lot of stuff, you know, in terms of work and maintaining the household, and then some health issues that I think can exacerbate problems. As regarding the case situation, and it's kind of what you heard here today. It's I think she desperately doesn't want to believe that this is true. I think that she has tried to say, well, I believe, but. And that's been a struggle for her to understand that, you know, there's no room for doubt here. And it's not even necessarily, this is what she and I have been talking about, is that it's not even necessarily, do you think your husband is guilty or not? For me, as a therapist, it's more along the lines of, are you communicating support to the children? And I think, you know, unfortunately, I don't think you can have it both ways. We can try, but we can't, because our true selves are communicated to the children. And I think that's been her struggle. More recently, she's been open to discussing that, and just the harsh realities that the state has had really very little choice in placing these children, because non-believing parents are the number one reason for kids to recant. And so that's what I've been working with her on recently, to understand is that the state's not picking on her. They have very real concerns.
Okay. And when you say that, you mean she's relaying to her the understanding that what the state's looking out for is the safety of the children.
Sure.
Is that,
sure.
Okay. Let me think I had to ask this question. As far, where do you see kind of her treatment going at this time, or her counseling, like you know, main focus? I know you've talked a little bit about what y'all have been focusing on, but after what you've heard today, do you have kind of a different direction or still working in the same direction that you were headed?
Yeah, I think it's the same direction. I think that there's so much to unpack, when an allegation like this comes to the life of a family. But we also saw this playing out a few months before this most recent allegation. So the ongoing trauma, the unknown, what I've talked to her also about is if her husband is acquitted or found, not guilty, then she's got another set of decisions to make, which is, do I believe my kids or do I believe my husband? So I think her needs long term are very real as she tries to come to terms with these allegations and wrestling with the idea if this is true, or if not, how do I navigate that with my children, if at all possible.
Sure. And I think you touched on a little bit. Have y'all worked toward the issue of whether I believe my kids or believe my husband? I mean, that's something y'all are working on at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that working on is the right word. I don't know how to express it. The problem, as I see it, that Ms. Hale is struggling with is it's a little bit of poor reality testing. We know that the lack of maternal support is a huge factor in these cases. So it's certainly not surprising to me that so weakly communicating belief in the children, or so obviously communicating with the alleged or the accused here, has created this narrative about her. But I think that it's reflective of how she feels. And I don't want us to get into the position of just teaching people to say what we want to hear. So I think she really struggles with this issue. And unfortunately, our priority is keeping kids safe. So you can't place kids with a non-believing, non-supportive parent.
Now, I believe during her testimony, she mentioned, and for my education on this, she mentioned she was struggling with it. She's kind of coming to the realization of it, but that she wanted to hear it from her own kids. I guess them to make the outcry to them. Exactly. Is that something normal that you run into in cases like this?
No, not in my experience. I don't know what to make of that other than, just more efforts to not accept the reality that's in front of her.
And you heard her say, I don't want you to give your opinion as to where placement should go or anything like that, but you think it's kind of best interest. You heard Lindsay say that right now she has more to work on and she didn't think placement would be appropriate with her due to what she needs to work on. Would you agree with that assessment and statement?
I do, and I think that's very insightful on her behalf as well. Knowing that's not the standard response, but I agree. I think that you can't be on the fence in this situation, and if you can't throw your support completely behind your children as the system tries to work this stuff out, then that possibility of recantation is too high.
In your experience in working in these cases, we're now pretty good way, were we 7-8 months into the case? Is it concerning that we're this far along into this case and there hasn't been that she's still kind of fence riding, I believe is how you say it, or is that kind of standard normal?
Well, it's tough because she could come in and say all the right things and still believe something different. So I can never really put timelines on it because some people figure that out quicker than others and they just play the game. I think that what Lindsay has certainly impressed me with is her honesty about a lot of this, which is going to be very unpopular. Now, helping her understand the relationship between how she thinks and how she feels and the outcome with these children, I think that's kind of where I've stepped in to say, this is your reality. You have to make some tough decisions, and it's horrible and it's unfair, and I hate it for you, but your kids have to be the focus right now.
I'll pass the witness right now, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Barfield?
Yeah, Troy, one thing we heard today was a lot of testimony about a long-term domestic abusive controlling relationship. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
Do you believe that that is an area where, have you seen in times battered women syndrome, people who are totally dependent on someone? Does it sometimes take some time for them to be able to break away from those type of relationships?
Yes.
And based upon what you heard today, do you think that's something that y'all can explore in trying to help her gain some independence and realize that she is not dependent on him or needs to communicate?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we touched on this recently where I asked her to recount all of the things that she has had to put in motion and keep in motion to, literally survive financially and otherwise. So I agree with that, Mr. Barfield. Going forward, really getting down to what appears to be sort of this dominant, submissive presentation within the family.
And, currently, there's, even though Mr. Archer's incarcerated, there's a bond hearing coming up. And, have you seen in circumstances where I'm going to refer to it as the victim of domestic abuse, there's still that thought out there potentially that this guy could still get out and I could be harmed? Do you think any of that could be going on?
Sure. I think it's probably a very complicated dynamic between these folks and their lifestyle choices, kind of factoring all of that stuff in. But I agree. I think there's a lot that would suggest responding to fear or, with fear and the unknown and trying to placate people that might have perceived power over you. And that's what this relationship sounds to me like.
And I also heard something pretty interesting in her testimony that Lindsay testified that she kind of likes, and I'm going to use my term, she's kind of likes, I guess, getting even with him for some of the things that he has done by kind of screwing with his mind, my terminology. And so that retribution, I guess, would be, I heard something that she's kind of getting retribution by some of these conversations. What is your opinion, if any, on that?
Oh, I'm not sure. I would really have an opinion that would be helpful.
Very good. I appreciate that. Do you think that it would be a step in the right direction, though, if Lindsay would stop communicating with Mr. Archer so as to avoid future attempts by him to manipulate her?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Because if she doesn't, because isn't that a danger that she's still running by still communicating with him? She's giving him the opportunity to continue that manipulation and that dominance over her.
Sure. And I think keeping her stirred up and debating innocence versus guilt, culpability, and all of that stuff. So sure, I think her best interest is to sever that relationship, and understanding that there's a process by which to do that, but understanding that her behaviors, her choices have to get consistent with her goals. She says, I want my kids back. She's actively pursuing this relationship with the AP. And so the work that we're doing is you can't have it both ways, right? And people see through disingenuous if that, but I worry too that sometimes we push and compel people to say what we want to hear, and that's not any more healthy than anything else.
No. And in fact, in a way, all this coming to light may be a breakthrough moment if utilized effectively through counseling with Lindsay and you, to where maybe she can have a breakthrough moment, because all this now is out in the open.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I would certainly hope that we could use today's information to help her get further down the
And
road.
lastly, I'm assuming it would be your opinion that she does need to continue counseling with you so that y'all can work on these issues, both for Lindsay and for her relationship with the children.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Timmons, I know all of us have been doing this quite a while. You've also been involved not only in a case like this, but in other cases where there's a coupled criminal case that's moving forward as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So complicating this whole issue is the fact that certainly Jonathan Archer is innocent until proven guilty in the criminal realm. You would agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And you would also agree with me that there have been situations where, you know, somebody's rights might have been terminated, but then later in the criminal case, that individual was found not guilty. Have you been involved in anything like that?
I can't point to any specifics, but I would say generally, yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm just saying that to just bring forth the point that it can be very complicated at times, but at this moment, it can be pretty simple in that, Lindsay, you need to focus on your kids. What happens in a year or two with Mr. Archer, you can focus on that then. I mean, is that kind of safe to say?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay. I have nothing further, Judge.
Ms. Zavala?
I have no questions at this time.
All right, and anybody have anything else they want to ask Mr. Timmons?
No, Your Honor.
Actually, Judge, I want to ask one question. I just got to be delicate how I ask it, Mr. Timmons, Mr. Barfield brought up a point as far as Lindsay's testimony with effectively, in Ms. Barfield's words, screwing with Mr. Archer's mind. The way that she said in her testimony that she answers things in certain ways sometimes to get under his skin. And I know that you have relationships where you have an abuser and the dominant person, and like we've been kind of talking about, that she's possibly under his thumb and kind of trying to get out from under that. And not in any way blaming people. Are there ever circumstances where it kind of comes into it's a two-way street? They both kind of have that relationship with each other.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at that. So if we're talking about domestic violence, then I think those are different dynamics. But if we're talking about relationship styles and sort of family systems styles that are centered around sexual behavior, then I think if what you're saying is it takes two to dance like that, you're correct.
No further question, John.
All right, Mr. Trout, your next witness.
We'd call Leanne Lefevre.
All right, Ms. Lefevre, you have been designated an expert and you are free to testify to your opinions in your field of expertise.
Thank you, Judge.
Just for the record, how are you familiar with it?
I provide counseling to all three children.
Okay. And when did you first begin to see them?
I met the children on January 4th of this year.
Okay. And just off the bat, kind of how are the children doing right now?
The children are doing relatively well. They're doing very well in placement. Beautiful, lovely, fun, funny, smart, silly, bonded, beautiful children. With regard to processing the issues that were at hand, it has been a slow process in dealing with those issues.
And can you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean by slow process in dealing with it?
The children have expressed fear and embarrassment about talking about what they refer to as the bad things that John did to them. And they have expressed fear of people being upset with them, talking about the issues. They're bonded to their mother, and they have expressed belief that their mother does not believe them. What they say is, Mom is confused. Mom is confused about what happened, and they're allegiant to their mom. They love her dearly, and their belief that mom is confused by what has happened is making it more difficult for me to help them process the trauma related to the allegations that they have made and have never recanted.
Okay. And in dealing with children of this age, when you hear a child say that mom is confused and that makes it harder for them, what kind of concerns is that for you that you're looking at?
The oldest child, particularly Delilah, is very parentified and even tells me it's hard acting like the parent for Lorelai and Juniper. They come to her. She feels obligated and responsible for meeting their emotional and psychological welfare and also keeping everyone happy in her family unit, particularly her mom. She loves her mom dearly, very much enjoys her visits with mom and dad, looks forward to them, but she has a sense of allegiance to her mom and has verbally identified that she believes her mom is confused about. Her statement is mom is confused because she doesn't believe John would do those things, but he did those things. Okay. And so it's making it very hard for her to safely process what's happened to her and to Lorelai, because they do not feel that they have the belief and support of their mother, who is one of the, if not the most important person in their lives at their current ages.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. And so you've had an issue due to what you've just discussed. Have the children seem to begin to deal with the trauma? Are they still kind of fighting dealing with that?
Yes, they have started opening up about it. They report consistently without variation that John did bad things, very embarrassing things, that he did things to them in their mother's room with the door shut while Juniper was supposed to sit in the living room and watch TV, and that John told them never to tell anybody. And the things were very embarrassing and hurtful to them. And it was confusing to them that John would do those things, but then also be kind to them and take them to the fair and to Wonderland. And they're at a level of development where concrete thought is exactly what you would expect. People are good or bad in their minds, that they don't understand that humans reside in the gray area. And so they very much struggle with, how could somebody who would take us to a Wonderland and be kind to us and do these fun things also do some things to us that were very unsafe and hurtful? And so they struggle with that, but that's exactly what I would expect as their therapist, given their level of thinking. And they're also concerned about mom's confusion about John's role in this.
Okay. Now, there has been some mention a time or two, and we're here today on a placement hearing. It's always tough to split siblings. Of course, we have a situation where we have two fathers in this case. Will the children, how do you think they will react if they are split?
In my opinion, and I have a strong opinion on this, it is going to be detrimental to split these children, particularly for Juniper. Juniper does not report being abused in this situation and does not report even understanding. Her belief is something bad happened and I had to leave my home, but I'm okay because I'm with my sisters. And she is extraordinarily bonded to her sisters and utilizes them as her chief coping strategy while being away from home. I'm with family, and my family is my sisters, and we're always going to be together. Additionally, Juniper has some medical issues that are of concern to me. She has a heart-related issue that is significant and being followed by a doctor, and she also has an insufficiency of some form. It's above my pay grade. I'm not a doctor, with regard to sugar issues. And her mom, by report, has been diligent in reporting these issues. And I am very concerned that she may be medically fragile in some way. And if we stress her out by separating her from her siblings, that we may exacerbate significant medical issues. Juniper is extraordinarily tiny. She's small for her age. And I do not want Juniper overlooked in this case because she was not a victim of sexual abuse. If you separate Juniper from her siblings, you are running the risk of having her as traumatized as her siblings.
And having said that, but you understand as far as,
Oh, everybody hang on. We lost our court reporter.
That's when I lost it.
Okay.
So let me pick up what I think I said, what I believe I said. Children of that age display concrete thought. People are good, bad, honest, lie. They struggle with the concept that people operate in shades of gray, that good and bad can exist within the same person. And so it is hard for them to reconcile that John did nice things for them and they had good moments with him, but yet he also allegedly sexually abused them continuously. And so that's a difficult concept for them. Additionally, they recognize that mom is what they call confused and non-believing that John would do these things to them. And so it makes it much more difficult for them to comfortably process the trauma that they have incurred, because the person that is likely the most important person in their young lives is their mom.
thank you, ma'am. And then I think we asked, after that, we asked as far as damage to or issue with splitting the children due to the fact that we have a biological father on the other side who is effectively cooperative and working with the department, and we're at a point in the case of placing, as we're talking about today, placing with the father and the split of the children. And you were elaborating on that.
I recognize what you've stated as being accurate. However, my concern is that splitting the children would be highly detrimental to them, but particularly to Juniper. Juniper is the youngest, and she is not reported being a victim of sexual abuse in this case. So her primary trauma is that she's involved with CPS and had to be removed for children's safety in this case. She reports being safe and stable because she's with her siblings. She loves her sisters tremendously and views them as her support system. She additionally has medical issues that are of concern to me. I have concerns that she may be medically fragile in some ways. She has a heart condition, and she also has some sort of sugar insufficiency that I don't clearly understand because I'm not her physician. But I recognize that she does have some significant medical issues that her mom has been diligent about reporting upon to the department and making sure that her needs medically are met. My concern is that if you have a child with medical issues and you put them under stress, you can exacerbate medical issues that could be of great concern. And I do not want that to happen to her. I don't want Juniper overlooked in this case. And I have concerns because she's not a victim of sexual assault in this. She's kind of sitting over here, that she runs the possibility of incurring a whole different level of trauma because we're going to separate her from her primary support system that she tells me is the reason why she's okay.
Sure. And does it change any if there is situations set up where the girls, even though they're living in two different places, can continually see each other with visitations and that kind of stuff? Does that change anything in your opinion?
It is vital that they continue visitation and contact if an agreement or some other plan cannot be reached to keep the kids together. However, Juniper has never been separated from her siblings to my knowledge. And this is going to be really detrimental to her. She is the youngest. She's the baby of the group. And it's not going to not inflict stress on her body and psychologically, even if she gets visits, because she's going to see her two sisters walk away happily with each other. And she is not going to walk away with them. She's going to be separated from them. And I see that as highly traumatic and detrimental to her. And I don't know a way around it.
Yeah.
You guys, I recognize the conundrum that it is, but it's my job to advocate for concerns I have. And I have a huge concern about this.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes.
Mr. Timmons kind of mentioned earlier, and I think you had kind of mentioned something to me when you and I spoke the other day. He mentioned about children being with a parent who is doesn't necessarily believe them, you have a high risk of recanting in these type of cases. Is that something that concerns you after talking with these children?
Yes, it does concern me.
Okay. And is that something you have seen in prior cases that you've dealt with of this type?
Yes.
There is a risk of that.
Yes, many times. And in fact, the children are already aware that mom is confused as per their term, and it's impeding treatment as we speak. The children are struggling with feeling confident in working through what has occurred because they recognize that their mother is not on board with them. So mom's ability to get in a better place on this issue is paramount to these children moving forward with their own treatment. She's very important in this whole process. And so even without living with her, their knowledge that she's not believing is still impeding their ability to get healthy.
And this may be kind of an odd question. Do children at that age, at the age that these girls are they able to recognize when an adult truly believes something or just says they believe it? If you know what I mean. Like, is it probably not a very well asked question. For instance, if mom said, I believe this, would the children know whether she truly believed them or would they pick up on if it was just a box check, is what I'm asking.
I'm going to answer this in a very general way because
That's
obviously,
fine. And I know it was an odd question.
case by case basis. Yeah. Children are hyper aware to pick, particularly at this age, in their mother's overt messaging, what is stated, and their covert messaging, what is implied, what is meant. So mothers can give the mom look and their children will be quiet in church or a restaurant. Moms, we all have the mom look if you're a mom. Children are excellent at picking up on covert messaging and very hyper aware of what the meaning or intent is behind whatever is said. I think these children are hyper aware of their mom's covert messaging as well as the overt messaging. And I think that's normal. That just shows that these children know their mom well and are bonded to their mom. As of today, as of current date, they do not believe their mother believes that this occurred.
And thank you for answering that way. That's what I was trying to ask. I just did not come out very well with it. So to follow up on that, you heard mom mention that she's working through it, and Mr. Timmons talking about the same. Do you think it is imperative that mom get to that point to make her mind up, as Mr. Timmons said, I think fence straddling, for the girls to end up to make their way through their treatment and processing?
I 100% agree with that. Mom's success in mentally wrapping her head around this issue and working through her own therapy and coming out in a different place is paramount to how the girls are going to be able to successfully or unsuccessfully process this trauma and ultimately live the rest of their lives. Everything hinges on mom's success or lack of in this area.
Thank you. Real quick, and probably should be my last question. How are the girls, the two older girls, with their dad? Are they're happy seeing their dad? Everything's going good in that, as far as you know?
They report very much enjoying their time with him and his girlfriend. They report a plethora of healthy, normal activities that they do with him. They're bonded to him. They care about him and they feel he cares about them. I have had nothing but consistent, positive, healthy feedback from the children with regard to time with dad. They very much enjoy it.
And just to clarify, because I just said dad, we're speaking about Mr. Hensley.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ma'am, in regards to the girl's relationship with mom, you've stated many times they're bonded, they love her. She's in fact the most important person in their life. So I assume from that the visits with mom have been going good and need to continue that bonding process.
Correct. I would be in agreement with that.
And I don't think you even said this or implied this. They characterize mom as confused, but they have in no way said mom has tried to make them recant or force them to recant or tell them to recant or put pressure on them to recant. That hasn't occurred, has it?
That has not been reported to me.
Okay. Okay. And do you feel that you have a very good counseling relationship with these girls? And do you believe they've been open and honest with you?
I do.
Okay. And in regards to, I want to just explore a little bit from what, based on your testimony, that really you believe it is your opinion, professional opinion, that to separate the girls at this time, to separate Juniper from her sisters, could in fact result in not only an emotional, psychological harm to Juniper, but also potential medical, physical harm to Juniper. Is that correct?
I am not a physician, so I cannot state clearly, but I know the research very clearly states if you put somebody under psychological distress and they have significant medical issues, you run an extraordinarily high risk of exacerbating whatever medical issues they may have. And so I do have this concern, and I do not want Juniper overlooked nor ignored.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Doc. Thank you.
Thank you.
If the law requires placement of a child with a parent, if that child is not in danger with the parent, is there anything that you can see that we could craft to help protect Juniper if they are going to be separated? Can we put in specific provisions about regular visitation? Is there anything you can point to that could help us?
If there isn't a reality that can be crafted where they could live together, and I clearly see this situation for what it is, my request would be that she gets extensive visitation with her sisters, that she can have phone calls with her sisters or FaceTime phone calls with her sisters. Anything that we can do to maintain that relationship would be great. If sister is going to be placed, if Juniper is going to be placed somewhere else, if she can go visit them and then they come visit her too, to where it's not just Juniper coming and having to leave, but they come and they have to leave. Anything that we can do in that regard, it would be meaningful to her. There is no way around the fact that it's not going to be traumatic if this is the decision that's made. There's just no way around it. It breaks my heart. If there was any way around it, I would humbly request everybody try to be creative and see if these girls can be kept together in any way. But regular contact, regular phone contact, going both ways, meeting independently, like at a park or someplace to where Juniper doesn't feel like she's always the one getting left. Those would be very important things. And I appreciate the court's willingness to think like that and be creative like that, because she needs this from this group of people.
Just ask real quick, Ms. LaFever, Mr. Barfield asked you a while ago about if the girls had mentioned anything to you about recanting. You remember that question?
I do.
Was it at the beginning of this case, kind of prior to removal, was there some allegations that mom had talked to the girls about the morning dad back home and whether things were?
It was reported to me that mom had.
Yeah, I'm going to object as hearsay and the form of the question. I don't know who supposedly said what. My specific question was, has mom specifically asked, since Ms. LaFever's been counseling the girls, have they reported to her that she has tried to get them to recant? So,
right.
Yeah.
So I understand your objection, and I'll sustain as the question was asked. So, Mr. Trout, if you want to try to rephrase it. And
I am, Your Honor, and I'm trying to think of how I'm going to rephrase that.
I agree with Mr. Barfield. What's in testimony was whether mom had ever encouraged or had ever asked the children to recant or anything of that nature.
Ms. LaFever, do you when you get a case like this, are you made aware of reasons for removal and where the case stands up to when you get the kids
Yes,
and the facts of the case.
yes.
Was it your understanding that part of the removal was due to mom speaking to the kids about whether this had actually happened and who did it?
Yes.
And from what your understanding of it was that, do you believe that that was in an effort to get them to recant?
That was what I was told.
Objection hearsay, Your Honor. And I'm also going to object to speculation on her part. He's asking for her to determine the truth of a statement made, and she does not have none of us do have the qualifications to make.
I don't know who told her. I guess it would help to know who she was told that by, and if it was not a party, then it would be hearsay.
I would draw you.
All right. All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Lefevre?
No, Your Honor.
Hey, Your Honor.
No, Judge.
Let me ask this real quick before I release Ms. Lefevre, because she's a children's therapist. I have a number of questions that I think she probably needs to hear this We're going to have a little Q&A here because there's some information I feel like I need to know.
Yes,
sir. So number one, current placement is willing to keep all of the children for the time being, correct?
I'm not privy to that information. The current placement is doing beautifully, but that would probably be a question for St. Francis.
Yeah. So and that really is a question I'm pitching to St. Francis, I guess. So I should have clarified that. I'm sorry. So this is a Q&A, not necessarily of Ms. Lefevre. I'm on an information gathering mission. So Ms. Cantrell, is placement willing to keep all the children? Not saying that's what I'm doing. I'm just asking.
Right. No, placement is very happy to have the girls in the home. She's never reported any discharges or any there. She really enjoys them in her home.
Would placement be willing to keep Juniper?
I believe so. Yes. It's yes, for sure.
Right. And placement is here in Amarillo?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Where are they?
They are in Pampa.
In Pampa. And aunt and uncle that we're talking about are in New Deal.
Correct.
So not a huge difference as far as distance.
No, ma'am.
Has St. Francis discussed thoroughly with Mr. Hensley and with aunt and uncle and or current placement about their willingness to get these children together? What are our parameters?
Yes, I've had extensive conversations with Mr. Hensley and the Upchurches regarding the visitation between the siblings. I haven't had a lot of contact with Stacy about it. Definitely can do that though.
Stacy's the current placement.
Yes, sorry,
Confusing.
Miss Salinas. Yes, the Upchurches are very open to such as every other weekend visits. Mr. Hensley said he is open to that as well. There's lots of conversations been had about, regular contact as far as FaceTime, things like that. We've definitely thought about this and what would be, so we could maintain that contact. Leanne did bring up a good point that I did not think of as far as the girls constantly leaving her. So, we can definitely go back to the drawing board of Juniper coming here, doing visits with, under the supervision. We would have to figure out that supervision because we couldn't allow Keaton to do that specifically, but definitely can work out great plans.
Okay, so, and Ms. Cantrell, you have my utmost faith.
Well, thank you.
So, it's summertime. Again, y'all, I've not made a decision about this, but I'm just trying to explore what the possibilities are, and which is exactly what I've been sitting here thinking, which is exactly what Ms. Lefevre has asked that I would do. So when did the children have visits with mom?
They have visits with moms. They're on Mondays.
Mhm. So the kids are coming to Amarillo for that? Is
No,
that
ma'am.
correct or not?
No, Lindsay is going to Pampa.
Okay.
If the girls were moved back with, well, not back, excuse me. If the older two were moved with Mr. Hensley, we would bring the visits to Amarillo.
Okay, so. And aunt and uncle are willing to work with that?
Yes, ma'am. Very open conversations with them about that. If there's ever, we've also talked about concerns of transportation. We have a great transportation team that we can, work out. We have a lot of options as far as making sure we get the girls here. They're having that time together. This has not been a simple thought or a very quick decision, because we do understand the significance of, splitting siblings. That's not our goal. It's never our goal. So in this case, this specific one, we have really taken our time to look at options, have conversations, because these girls have already been through enough, and I don't want to hurt them any more than they're already being hurt.
And I appreciate
So
that. Thank you so much for taking care on this issue. I recognize this, there may not be a good answer here, but we need to get it as close to right as we can for Juniper's sake.
Yeah, it's, the attorneys involved in this understand and know what the court's dilemma is because of significant rewrites in the law a year or so ago.
And Mr. Hensley has done everything that Mr. Hensley would have been asked to do. He's been an extraordinarily agreeable parent in all this. I'm really concerned about this kid's physical and mental health.
Yeah, I mean, and I think everybody is.
And I'll tell you that placement has spoken very highly about Mr. Hensley and his girlfriend and their interactions with Juniper. That they've been very kind, always kind of include her as the girls, and I really appreciate that from Mr. Hensley. And I'm hoping that maybe that gives us some more options for visit type stuff.
Yeah, Mr. Hensley, I mean, you seem to be very willing to include her, and I mean, is she welcome in your home and to spend time there with the other two children?
Yes, ma'am. Once I can get through a couple of hurdles, and I would be more than happy to have her come over here and spend time with her family, because I don't want to see any of them get hurt. Yeah.
Ms. Cantrell, do you know what he's talking about as far as hurdles? I mean, are we talking about anything significant here?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to go in detail on it on YouTube.
If we need to shut down YouTube unless anybody objects.
No objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection.
I think I have a pretty good idea of the hurdles he's talking about based upon my other practice area.
I suspect I do, and I agree it's not something we need that probably. Everybody agree that it's in the best interest of the children that we close the courtroom and to protect privacy issues and best interest of the children.
Agreed.
Yes, Judge.